Welcome to Write with Love. I'm your host, Sarah Williams, best-selling author, speaker, and creative entrepreneur. Each week, I chat to passionate and inspiring authors about their journey in creative writing. Some are traditionally published, some do it themselves. Everyone's journey is different, and everyone has something interesting to say. We all love love and love what we do. Today's show is brought to you by our amazing fans and supporters on Patreon. If you'd like to help support the show and get some awesome bonus episodes, go to patreon.com/Sarah Williams Author to learn more. Now here's today's show. G'day. I'm Sarah Williams. Thanks for joining me for episode 46 of Write with Love. I'm recording this on Friday the 26th of October, straight after last week's, because next week when I would normally record it, I'll actually be on the Gold Coast finishing up with Margie Lawson and about to enjoy a weekend on the coast with my kids and husband. We have a great little weekend planned of going to Wet n Wild and some of the other theme parks, but also Outback Spectacular, which I've been excited about for ages. Remember, nominations for Osram Today Awards are now open. Last year I was nominated for Best New Author of 2017, which was really awesome. Thank you for nominating. This year the Reader's Choice categories are Best New Author, Best Established Author, Author of the Year, Cover of the Year, and Book of the Year. You can nominate in multiple categories, but the authors must be Australian. The website is ausromtoday.com. Also, the Australian Romance Readers Association are hosting 3 author signing events in March 2019, and reader tickets are on sale now for a romantic rendezvous. Locations and dates are Brisbane, 23rd of March, Sydney on the 24th of March, Melbourne on the 30th of March, and possibly even Perth on the 31st of March. But they do have to get the numbers, so go to that website to support them. I will be at the Brisbane signing and would love to see you there. I will have all my books as well as lots of free stuff for you, and if you're a patron, you can claim your hug. The ARA website is australianromancereaders.wordpress.com. Just a reminder that I have 2 books available for pre-order at the moment. The Dairy Farmer's Daughter, which is the first in my new Heart of the Hinterland series, is out on the 28th of November 2018, and you can order that at your favourite online shops or contact me directly for a paperback. And check out the 30-second book trailer on my website, YouTube, and social media. If you love Australian rural romance, then for only 99 cents you can read 6 of Australia's favourite best-selling full-length novels and 1 brand new story. Annie Seaton, Suzanne Bellamy, S.E. Gilchrist, Anne B. Harrison, S.M. Spencer, Philippa Neffrey Clark and I have joined forces for a combined Kindle-only box set called Outback Hearts. It will be live on Amazon on December 1st and you can pre-order it now. And if you would like to join me here in the beautiful Maleny hinterland, I have 2 spots left on a writer's retreat I'm hosting from May 31st till 3rd of June 2019. All the details are on my page, sarahwilliamsauthor.com/Maleny-writers-retreat. We will be writing, talking craft and having fun. I will also show you all the steps involved in uploading a manuscript to distributors and how to professionally self-publish. But if you miss out on that one, there will be another one in October from the 18th to the 21st, 2019. Get in touch with me soon as the spots are filling up because I'm hosting this one in Noosa. You don't want to miss that. It's right by the beach. It'll be beautiful. And if you are an author who would like a shout out on the show for as little as $25, send an email to sarah@serenadepublishing.com or become a patron at patreon.com/Sarah Williams Author for more information. Next week, I'm chatting to Rita-winning Kiwi author Bryn Kelly. You don't want to miss that one, it's great. Today's chat was filmed live from the Sunshine Coast. Anna Campbell is the Queen of Regency. Check out the Write With Love Facebook page for your chance to win a signed paperback from Anna. Now here's the interview, and I'll see you next week. G'day and welcome to Write With Love. I'm so fortunate today. I've just had a lovely morning tea with this pretty talented lady. It's Anna Campbell, everyone. Thank you so much for this. Oh, my pleasure. I've had no wonderful tea, and oh my gosh, that's your progress. It's beautiful. I haven't had chocolate in ages.
That's my secret weapon.
There you go.
Well, thank you for coming to interview me.
No problem. We've just recently worked out that we're practically neighbours. We're both from the Sunshine Coast.
Which was funny because we were emailing for a long time before we worked
We were trying. I was like, can we meet in Sydney? Can we meet in Auckland? I'll meet you anywhere.
Sarah's at the top of the hill and I'm at the bottom.
Very Sunshine Coast. So we've got some of your books here, and for the people lucky enough to be watching us on YouTube, we also have some awards, and we're going to get to what you won them for and all these amazing things as well. But obviously you're successful, and you would have stopped. So tell us about yourself and your writing journey.
All right, I was always a bookbag kid. I can remember sort of being a 2 or 3 year old, my parents reading me fairy stories and just loving that whole story process. I always loved movies, I always loved TV. I think I was just in love with story. And I think it was monkey see, monkey do. I always thought I was going to be a writer. My mother kept an essay from grade 3 where I actually said I was going to be the next Enid Blyton, which I always thought was so funny because, as I say, Enid Blyton, these books are not. And then when I was, actually that might have been grade 2, and then in grade 3 I actually started to write my first novel, which was a fabulous Enid Blyton rip-off called, I think it was the Rockingham Mystery, and it was about horse napping, because I was absolutely horse obsessed at that stage. And anyway, so I always had this great vocation, and then it took me until I was 45 to get published. So I was clearly not an overnight success or a quick learner. So, but having said that, I was published. I sold in 2006, and my first book, Claiming the Courtesan, came out in 2007. And the publishing world was so incredibly different then. The doorways, there were few doorways and they were hard to get through. Publishers very much were gatekeepers on what happened and things like that now. So I think things have actually opened up incredibly since then, which we are going to talk about later.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so I'd always written, and I got through until I was I finished my first full-length book when I was 17, which was a historical novel set in the French 100 Years' War that was called Darkness Holds a Stranger, which I still think is a fabulous title, which was about a guerrilla fighter. The hero was a French aristocrat who was a guerrilla fighter, and he had a marriage by proxy to an English girl, and of course, he captures this English girl who's lying about her identity, and it's his wife. I mean, twists. So I finished that, and so I actually date my publication journey from that. So it was actually something like 27 years between finishing that and when I sold to Avon. So as I say, it wasn't quick, and I kept writing, and I decided that maybe Mills and Boons would be my way into publication, because I'd always read voraciously in romance. My mother was a romance reader. My grandmother was a romance reader. We used to swap books, so I'd read a million Mills and Boons, and I actually wrote 8 Mills and Boons, and I didn't get accepted. But the sad thing is, when I finally got up the courage to join Romance Writers of Australia, and I went to my first conference, they had one of their top editors over, and the sad thing was she was talking about the rejection letters, and she said there's the basically never darken our door again letter, and you move up through, if they're actually saying specific things about the books and they're saying resubmit and stuff. And every single letter I had was a resubmit. We think you've got something, resubmit, this isn't the right story. But the thing is, after 8, And because I was on my own, I didn't know anyone who was writing, and nobody could say to me, "Don't be ridiculous. These are actually quite, you're close." I got to the end of the 8th thing, and I thought they clearly tell everybody who sends stuff to them to send stuff back. They're just being nice. And so I sort of went into a bit of a spin at that stage. I then spent 13 years, and I did not submit a book to anyone. And if I have any advice for people who are writing, submit, because seriously, no one's going to break down the door and say, "Do you have any wonderful books under the bed that we can publish?" And I kind of mucked around with various things, and then I went through a stage where I decided that the writing dream was basically like the Dancing in the Bolshoi dream, and I should give it up, and it was childish. And I had a really rotten 12 months where I'd trained myself to be a writer, I'd trained myself to notice everything that a writer does, and I'd be going along and go, "No, you can't look at that anymore, you're not a writer." And that ended up actually being quite a fertile period, which it was awful. And I think the fact that it was awful was really good, because what happened was when I came back from that, which would have been very late 90s, I realised that I couldn't do this on my own anymore. I needed some advice, I needed some help. I clearly wanted to write just for the writing's sake, because I'd missed it so much not doing it. And so what I did, that was actually when I joined Romance Writers in Australia, and they were so much help to me. I found a critique partner. My very first contest, I came third, and I got wonderful feedback on what I'd sent in, and it was kind of like someone who wasn't my mother was reading the stuff and saying that it was good. And I was still writing very uncommercial stuff. The one that I came third in was actually set in 18th century Hungary. Now, I don't know if you're a historical reader, but 18th century Hungary is not a big commercial. And every time I tell someone the story about this, it was so clear that 18th century Hungary was so far away from their knowledge base. People would be going, "So why is he a prince?" I'm going, "Oh, they're just print, 18th century, nobody knows anything about 18th century. A very interesting period." And anyway, so but that winning that prize, I thought I should try and write something a little bit more commercial. And at that stage, the Julia Quinn, Amanda Quick books were doing terrifically well. And I thought I'll try a Regency comedy. And the weird thing was, the minute I started writing Regency, it was like I'd come home, because I'd been reading these since, I was 8 years old. My mother gave me my first Georgette Heyer. My grandmother had given me Barbara Cartland's when I was about 9 or 10. So I'd read thousands of books set in this era, and it was kind of like I knew it. I knew what it sounded like, I knew what people were like. I'm not saying I didn't do any research, because obviously you do, but there was just something there was a match there between me and the Regency. And the very first book that I actually wrote as a Regency one, which I'm actually hoping to release in the next couple of years, so watch out, was actually called The Magnificent Marriage, and it actually ended up winning the very last Emma Darcy Award, which was for an unpublished manuscript. So you got a check for $2,000 and Emma Darcy's imprimatur saying how good this was and stuff. And that book also finalled in the Golden Heart. But in the meantime, for various horrible personal reasons, I'd started writing a very, very, very dark historical called Claiming the Courtesan, that at that stage was called No Ordinary Duchess. And all through this time when I hadn't submitted, I'd been entering contests, because I love contests, as you can probably tell. I love contests. And this book really got people excited. It was funny. It was kind of like, "Oh, this is really good, we'll give you a prize," to, "Oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever read, first prize. Yeah. And this thing just really, and you could tell people were excited. And if you win a contest, it would go to an editor as to judge the final, 4 or 5 and pick the winner and stuff. And I was getting all these requests in. So my 13 years of not submitting was sort of suddenly seeming like cowardice rather than, artistic, and which it was. And I suddenly started to think, well, I need to, so I got an agent, and then we ended up submitting Claiming the Courtesan around, because it final. And so March of 2006, the Golden Heart announcements came out there. That's a big unpublished manuscript contest in America. Yes. And both Magnificent Marriage and this Claiming the Courtesan had finals. So I had 2 Golden Heart finals. Okay. My agent sent the manuscript up saying this is a double Golden Heart finalist, and the book that they were really interested in, because I think it was much more powerful than because Magnificent Marriage was a romantic comedy. was claiming the courtesan, and we actually had 3 major publishers wanting to buy it. So it actually went to auction.
Oh, awesome.
Oh, you didn't know this. Which was, leaving the kid in zero and going to hero. It was really surreal. It was really surreal because as far as I was concerned, as I say, I got to the point of giving up because I thought it was never going to happen. And, I had an auction that went on for a week in New York of, we'll do this, and we'll do this, and we'll do this, and we'll throw in some steak knives. And it was so exciting. And the awful thing is I had not a wink of sleep all that week because with the way the hours go in America, you're up all night sort of entering, these people have come back with this and these people have come back with this. And then, of course, you're so excited all day. You don't. So it was Good Friday on 2006. We ended up going with Avon, HarperCollins to publish it, and it was a 3-book deal. And God bless them, they paid me enough money that I could go full time.
Nice.
I know, it was very nice. And so Claim the Courtesan came out in 2007, and Untouched came out end of 2007. So that was the beginning of 2007. That was the end of 2007, and then they were both Rita finalists. Rita's the biggest it's like romance Oscars. So neither won, but I don't mind. They were both Rita finalists the next year. Yes. And I've been a full-time writer ever since. Yeah. So I've done 12 full-lengthers, and I've done about 20 novellas. So I've been a busy girl.
Indeed. Gosh. Now, you get to travel, and I love this. I love traveling. I think most writers love traveling, especially if you get to write about exotic destinations. So tell us about how you write while you're working, while you're traveling.
A few years ago, I had a word with myself about the fact that I had a portable job and I wasn't taking advantage of it because I'd always had the travel bug. And the problem is when you've got a house, you really can't leave your house. And I discovered this wonderful thing called house sitters. It's a wonderful invention. And so what I've done in the last couple of years is I've had some extended periods overseas. In 2006, I had 2 months in the US and Canada, and I went to the Band Centre of the Arts for a month, which was fantastic. And in 2017, I had 3 months in mainly the UK, and 2018 I had 4 months, mostly UK, but I also threw in France and Croatia. And I did a signing in Slovenia, which was so exciting. Wow. It's going to be on my tombstone, being in Slovenia. And so that was really fun. What I actually did was, when we were having morning tea, I was saying to Sarah, the number of people who come up to me and say, "Did you have a nice holiday?" And I think, holiday. I wrote and wrote and wrote. Because one of the things about paying to go somewhere to write is you really feel you have to write. And the other thing too is if someone's looking after things like your basic food and cleaning your room and all this sort of thing and stuff like that, you really don't have a lot of excuse not to write. So I wrote an enormous amount away. So it ended up being a little bit, probably about 2.5 months all up that was writing, and the rest of the time was travel. But my latest release is a book called The Lairds, Willful Lass. I'm doing a series of Scottish books called The Lairds Most Likely. And there was something so magical writing a Scottish book when I was in Scotland. Because usually in Australia, what you tend to, historical romance is still mainly UK set, and what you tend to do is sort of, you've got Dream England or Dream Scotland, and you sort of go, oh, what did I see when I looked out the window? When I was writing Laird, it was kind of like, oh yeah, bluebells. And it was extremely cool.
Oh, that's so good. I can't wait. I get to go to Scotland next year, and I'm just like, I can't wait to go there. Maybe I'll read Campbell while I'm there.
Sure, yes, absolutely.
Do some exciting for you.
I don't think they should let people who are accustomed to aren't reading out of
Absolutely, sure. Awesome. So we do have some awards here, and I'm just award envy. I have my husband gets all the awards in our house, and my kids, someway. So there's a lot here from ARA, which is Australian Romance Readers Association. So I love ARA, and lots of authors. I mean, there's definitely just the readers should go on and check them out too. They're brilliant. So you won the ARA favourite romance author. You won it 4 years in a row.
I did.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that was very nice. Yes,
Beautiful one. I'm getting very excited.
hands off. That's the only bit of dusting I don't mind doing.
I would definitely do myself.
So, the people at ARA are really wonderful and they're so supportive for local authors. And I think one of the reasons there's a bit of a renaissance of Australian romance writing going on at the moment. There's huge numbers of rural romances and huge contemporary romances. There's some that are still doing historicals and things. And I think part of it can be put down to ARA. I think the Australian Romance Readers Association, it's a readers association, although as a writer you can obviously be a member. But they do things like, there's loops where they recommend reading, and they do a newsletter every month where they do reviews, and they do a wonderful awards night every year. And what's nice is because it's Australian and they're Australian readers, there's this lovely local content. And you don't have to be Australian to win. You have to be Australian to win the most popular romance, right? But the book categories you don't. But generally, people who win are Australian because it's so nice to be able to support your own people. Because Sarah was up for Best New Author last year.
So I was. It was very exciting.
No, it is. And it's so exciting. They announce the winners and, you just go, oh, stuff. And it's really nice. And as I say, so, if you're interested in romance reading, I highly recommend joining the Australian Romance Readers Association. They're fabulous.
Yeah, and coming up in 2019, they are doing signing in different places.
Yes.
So I'm going to be there in Brisbane, and you will hear more about this. So it's in, I want to say it's in March. I'm pretty sure I've got that right.
I know it's early because unfortunately, I'm doing another 4 months overseas.
But I know, ARA, they are doing Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, and they've just announced Perth as well. So if you're in those locations,
Oh, fantastic.
And there's lots and lots of authors. So there's some people coming in from international places as well. So you'll definitely find someone you know there.
Yeah. I think they're having Sherilyn Kenyon and Celeste Bradley as the international visitors.
They are. I'm pretty sure they're going to Perth as well. So,
yeah. Oh, excellent.
Good. So that should be awesome. So definitely the tickets. They probably are on sale when this is live. So not right at the moment when we're recording, but they will be soon.
But if you want to find ARA, just Google Australian Romance Readers Association.
Yes.
They do a blog as well. But definitely well worth joining. Yes.
And
they do a lot of contests and things. It's a really great way to pick up some free books.
They do. Their monthly newsletter, it's got all these competitions in there, and absolutely fantastic. So that's awesome. So we've got the Romance Writers of Australia. We've got your Ella Award up here, which is this one. This one is
that's one of the Heart of Excellence, which is one of the American contests awards. So it's nice. What's actually nice is I've got a little bookcase of these in the office, and you're having those days when you really just don't think you're up to it. You look at them and you go, no, you are up to it. I can do it.
So you need to be entering competitions, people.
Honestly, competitions were a really good way. I said to you that I had got so disheartened with those rejections. And honestly, now I look at myself and I think I should have grown a backbone. But competitions kept me in the swing. And the other thing about contests is they teach you a whole stack of stuff. They teach you how to format. They teach you to come in for a deadline. They teach you that not everybody's going to love your work, but some people will, because you get such a wide variety of responses to things, to competitions. You'll get some good advice. And I have to say, not all the advice you get from competitions are good, but that's another skill. Mm-hmm. We know what's good advice and what's bad advice. So if you're an aspiring writer, I really think the writing competitions are a good way to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're only a reader, they are always looking for people to judge.
Oh, they really are. Yes.
So it's definitely a way, hey, read for free, and what you have to do is give your honest opinion. So why not? So that's awesome. So, of course, you were traditionally published, but then in 2015, you joined the other side.
Over to the dark side.
So, of course, I'm
I'm an indie, and I've been following every indie in Australia, basically.
And there's a lot of us.
There is a lot of us, so which is brilliant. So you decided to go indie, and so since 2015, you've done 20 best-selling novellas and 2 full-length books as well. So, tell us. Well, actually, I want to know, why are you writing novellas and not sticking to or why are you doing both, really?
Well, when I decided I was going to go indie, I'd had a wonderful career with traditional publishing, but I needed a bit more flexibility than I had. And I think one of the things that people will always say about indie is you have that ability to make fast changes, you've got that control over everything. I always wanted to do more releases, and the problem with traditional publishing is they have those 10 slots or 12 slots a month, and you might send your book in March, and then they'll schedule it for the following March because that's the first time they've got a slot and they can fit your book in. And then when it goes to Kmart, that's the number of slots they've got at Kmart, so they can't suddenly go, oh, this is brilliant, we'll put this out in the April after we get it and stuff, because that's not, they're very slow. I learned a tremendous amount on traditional publishing. I certainly think there's pluses to traditional publishing. I think the fact that they give you an advance is really good. I think it's a really good way to learn an awful lot about editing, the book market, how you approach things and stuff. I'm certainly not anti-traditional publishing, and I'm not saying I'd never go back. But at the moment, I'm really happy with what's happening with the indie, because I can release as many books as I want on the schedule I want. On the style I wanted. I built up a reputation of writing fairly dark books, and I wanted to write something a little bit lighter, which I can do as an indie that was more difficult to do within the sort of framework they had me in with traditional writing. And so when I went for the novellas, it basically was a really practical decision. I'd written a couple of novellas on the side while I was doing the traditional publishing. I'd done a couple of Christmas stories, and Her Christmas Earl, that won the romantic Australian Romance Writers of Australia Award, was one of the ones I did before I went full-time indie. So I decided that I needed an awful lot of work out in a hurry, because one of the things about indie is it's a volume game. You need a book, and you need another book for the people to buy, and you need another book for the people to buy, and it's just one of those things where a 30,000 or a 40,000 word novella takes you less time to write than a 100,000 word book. It's a maths. It really is a maths. So I did a whole stack of these novellas, and then. Sorry. Bouncing all over. And then I did the full length of Lord Garson's Bride to finish my Dashing Widows series, because I've done a series of 6 novellas called The Dashing Widows, about women who come back to society and life and all the rest of it after usually unhappy marriages. Not all of them were unhappy, but most of them were. So they had a bit of baggage when they came back, and they had done terrifically well. And I had one spare hero, because the very last story in the series is called Catching Captain Nash, and it's actually a widow who's not a widow. So he's been lost at sea. They think he's dead. 5 years later, he comes back, and she's just about to get engaged. It's actually at her engagement party that he turns up. I love that. And it was a really dramatic opening, because she loved the guy who died. She still loved the guy who died, but she's got a child. It's been 5 years. She's basically been living like a hermit, and she really feels she owes it to the child in particular to come back into the world. And he's a lovely guy. The guy who's engaged to her, he's not an evil guy at all, and he's genuinely in love with her. What actually happens is the husband comes back, and the husband was always it for her. It was kind of like, she was a one-man woman, but she thought the one man was dead, and then he comes back. So of course, poor sod getting engaged to it was sort of. What do I do? And the problem with that is I was then left with the what do I do? And everybody kept saying to me, you've got to write a story, you've got to give him a happy ending. Because the thing is, he was really good about the whole, because one of the things about a novella is you can't have terrifically complicated subplots. So I couldn't have been running around trying to destroy things, because I basically had to, in the space I had, re-establish the relationship between the first two. So partly from practicality, it was a case of, well, lost out here, I'll step aside. And then people wanted him. And because he had this background of being in love with her, it wasn't something I could do in a short book. I had to write a full length, and so that's where Lord Garson's Bride came from, which was the last of the 6 novellas and a full length are on the Dashing Widows. And then I had such a nice time going back to full length again, and Lord Garson had done really well. I wasn't sure after writing all those novellas whether people would take the step of both the longer length and the higher price point, but people did. Lord Garson did really well, and I thought, well, I wanted to do a Scottish series. It was going to be novellas, but when I was writing The Laird's Wilful Lass in Scotland, Bluebells, I thought, well, you know, the story was going on. It was past a novella length, and I thought, well, I'm not going to fight this. So the Scottish one's going to be 3 full-lengthers and provisionally 2 short ones for Christmas. But I'll see how it goes. But definitely 3 in a short one, or 3 and 2 short ones. And then after that, Sarah will have to come back and interview. So it's Laird's Wilful Lass. The Christmas one's out at the end of October, which is about when this is going out, I think, and it's actually called The Laird's Christmas Kiss. And it's a short one, so it'll be at that 99-cent price. And then late February or March next year is the Laird's Lost Lady. And then probably 3 or 4 months after that will actually be the Laird's English Bride. So that's the Scottish
Yeah,
series.
I'm so excited. I'm a big fan of Outlander, who I was talking to you about. So and it's great because I love the Regency, and because I write rural, I tend to read more rural. So when I need a little bit of a break from our lovely rural writers, I generally will come back and do a Regency. And I do love the novellas, and I absolutely love Stranded on the Scottish.
Stranded on the Scottish Earl.
I love that one.
That one was so important. That was one of the things that made me think of doing a Scottish series, because it was so popular, that one. It just went out of the gate.
Yeah. So I actually met you. Well, I don't know if we officially met, but I saw you at the Cairns Writers Festival, which would have been, I want to say 2016.
I think it might be 2016.
Yeah. And you were on a panel with Helene Young.
Yeah.
And
if you want a great read, Elaine Young writes the most wonderful books.
Yes. And I've got a podcast on her. So
I bet she doesn't say that about her.
I'm sure she does. I did talk about it. So, and I remember you saying at the time that you had this book, and because you were talking about it as well, pretty much straight away. Stranded on the Scottish. Stranded with the Scottish Earl, and you said something along the lines of "you get what you get with this book." And I just, because you explained it, I'm like, oh my god, I want to read that. I've got space in my reading. So, and it's a great book.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, but that basically is the story. Yeah, because it's kind of like people say, and when I was writing that, what's your next book called? And I go, Stranded with the Scottish Earl. And they go, what's it about? And I go, Stranded with the Scottish Earl.
That's it. As long as it is a snowstorm or something.
It rains.
Yeah,
it was actually the year we had the most awful rain here when I was writing it. And I ended up losing my whole side fence because Bundaberg got wiped out in a mini cyclone, and it came down here. Do you remember that year? I think weather is a great thing for drama. and it's interesting because there's a snowstorm in one of the Scottish ones because there was this awful. I got caught with beast from the east when I was overseas last time, and actually got snowed in. I couldn't get out. And one of the things about weather is it actually makes everything very stark. It's a bit like those country house movies in the 80s. You're trapped. You can't get out. And my heroine and the Scottish Earl were trapped. I can't imagine what happened. He's a very nice Scottish Earl.
Oh, brilliant. So, which of these, we'll talk about a few of these books for everyone who has already read Stranded with the Scottish Earl. Oh, well, I have by now. And, of course, we've got The Laird's Wilful Lass, which is out now, and The Laird's Christmas Kiss, which you were saying, which will be out right about the time this goes here. So we're going to do a giveaway with The Laird's Christmas Kiss. Stay tuned on the Facebook page for that. So we've got, tell us about this one, A Scoundrel by Moonlight. It's very pretty. I like this one.
Isn't it lovely? this one is, my best friend in primary school was a girl called Christina Moore with blue eyes and red hair. And seriously, she could have mobbed for this. And I get that really weird thing, and every time I look at that picture, I think, what's Chris Moore doing on the book? This is actually, this is the volume that was released by Mills at Boon Australia. And there's actually a bonus novella in it, so it's actually quite a good buy. And it's still available in the shops. You can still find this one around the place. Scoundrel by Moonlight was actually the fourth of, my last traditional contract was with the Hachette Company. And their romance arm in America is called Grand Central. Yes. So I had 4 books out with them, which were the Sons of Sin series. There were 4 books and 2 novellas. And this was actually the fourth of the books, but they are standalone. You actually don't have to read the first 4. The first book is actually what was my best-selling traditional book, and it's actually called 7 Nights in a Rogue's Bed. And I think people bought it on the title alone. You kind of go, oh! And that was one of those God-given titles, because anyone who's worked in traditional publishing knows that often your title gets changed. Nobody ever changed this. Whenever it's been translated, I think we're up to sort of 20 languages in this one now. It always still gets translated to 7 Nights in a Rogue's Bed. I think I wasn't the only person who thought, gee, that's not a bad title. That's a real Beauty and the Beast story. Have you read this? Okay. No, she turns up. He's having a feud with her brother-in-law, and has actually done a gambling deal that he's going to sleep with her sister, and she turns up instead. She offers herself. So it's very Beauty and the Beast. She turns up, and he has had so many awful things that happened to him. This poor hero. He's a tortured hero with the sort of like to the nth degree. And of course they fall in love, but there's all this sort of betrayal and stuff that goes on as well too. So it's actually full of drama and sex, that one. And that's the 4th book in the series. So it's actually based on 4 men who meet at Eton and are basically bullied, and they sort of set up this. It's not exactly a society, but they're kind of like them against the world. But there's a question over their birth. Every single one of them has a question over his birth, which is where the Sons of Sin thing comes from. This guy, his parents were supposedly married, but there's no proof of it, which is why the brother-in-law ends up taking over the title. So that's why there's a feud going. So he's supposedly a bastard, and he has been disinherited. So the second one, the mother had a child sort of when the husband was miles away in Russia, which was actually a Rita nominee, the Rags Midnight Kiss. That was actually up with the Rita. The third guy, why was he a Son of Sin? He's a Duke. The main thing I remember about him is he's a Duke. There's a question over his birth, and then the 4th guy is actually based on Winston Churchill. Actually, he's a politician who's the scandals that are going on are actually affecting his political career. So he ends up retiring. No, that's actually no, that's the 4th one. Scoundrel by Midnight. This one's actually a standalone, and this is my favourite of all my books. It was the last book I wrote for Avon, and it's called Midnight's Wild Passion, which is an awful title. But it's actually based on Mary Shelley. Oh wow! The heroine's based on Mary Shelley. She runs away with a useless guy, and it's how her life sort of goes from there and things like that. And then she comes across this rake who's set on revenge, but of course, love changes us all. So as I say, if you want to know which one's Anna Campbell's favourite, that's how often is that? An author will actually say, "This is my favourite book." Oh my gosh, it's like you love all of them. No, you love all of them. You really do love all of them because particularly when I was writing the traditionals, because I was writing a book a year with the traditionals, and that's an awfully long time to have a book in your head. But no, that was the one when you write. What comes to you is this wonderful vision of what this book is going to be. It never quite measures up to that sort of thing. That was the one that was closest to what I had in my head because I wanted to write about someone like Mary Shelley for years and years and years, ever since I'd read the story and thinking how incredibly sad it was, and she was only 16, and her whole the path of her whole life was set by running over Shelley, who was married at the time. And I wanted to do this for years, and I finally got to do it. And then I was really pleased with how the story came out.
Excellent. Oh, yay. There we go. And we can still buy all of these.
You certainly can. They're all of my books. Touch wood. I'm hoping that's the case by November. Everything's still finding them in bookshops is a little more difficult, but you can definitely get them with Booktopia. You can get them Amazon. Book Depository has all of them. Book Depository don't charge postage, so they're great to buy from. Booktopia is great to buy from, and they generally have a if you get on their mailing list, they'll do a free mailing list and things, and everything's available on here. I mean, one of the things about it is, and libraries. I mean, seriously, I never argue with people want to get stuff out on libraries, and they're all available at libraries.
That's absolutely excellent. So we know what's coming out next.
We do. We're wandering around.
We are a little bit, sorry. So where can we find you online? Keep up to date with everything you've got.
www.campbell.com. That's a hard one to remember. That's the website. I update that every month. Then I also do a column called My Favourite Things, which is basically just noodling about things that I like. And then I'm also on Facebook. I'm on Facebook a lot. That's Anna Campbell Author. If you want to find me, there's a friends page and a fan page, so whichever one you're interested in going to. And I'm also on Twitter.
Excellent.
So I do good reads, but really only just to keep track of what I'm reading. I don't really sort of what I'd say interact with there. But Twitter or Facebook, you'll do things that bother me.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for our chat today. Thank you. It was.
Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the show. Jump onto my website, sarahwilliamsauthor.com, and join my mailing list to receive a free preview of my books and lots of other inspiration. If you like the show and want it to continue, you can become a sponsor for just a couple of dollars a month. Go to patreon.com/Sarah Williams Author. And remember to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and leave a review of the podcast. I'll be back next week with another loved up episode. Bye!